Okay. So welcome back to day 3 of CS Career Paths. Today we'll be discussing other careers part 2. For the overview of what we're going over today, it's DevOps Engineer, Database Administrators, Mobile Developers, Computer Hardware Engineers, and Quantitative Analysts. First.
No particular reason, Harry. So first we'll be covering DevOps Engineers. And DevOps stands for Developer Operations. And you'll see why they're called that in a bit. So, DevOps Engineers are responsible for introducing processes, tools, and methodologies to balance them throughout the software development lifecycle such that the resulting products are delivered quickly and are high quality. So for example, a DevOps engineer might convince their team to switch to a microservices-based pipeline with agile integration. And by the way, if you don't know, microservices are like simple services that you can make requests to anywhere. And agile integration is just designing such that microservices can be dropped in and out seamlessly. And a DevOps engineer might want to do that because it would allow them and their team to develop modular components more quickly. And if they want to optimize the development process, going with modular components might be best for their whatever product they're working on at the time. And the national average salary is $101,000 per year. So DevOps engineers usually have one or more of the following: a bachelor's degree in computer science or software engineering, or a master's degree in CS or software engineering. But learning DevOps from online courses, such as Code Cloud and Red Hat, can also be helpful. But of course, a DevOps engineer's experience with software development in medium to large teams is valued more than what they learn in university or through online courses. So DevOps engineers will usually have 2 to 4 years of experience in entry-level or standard positions like just a standard software engineer or an IT intern after graduating. And they should have the following skills: experience with development tool chains for building, testing, packaging, releasing, and so on. Experience with containerization, which is packaging your individual software components into standalone components, or repackaging software into reusable modules, and knowledge of whatever business goals their company has and architecturally significant requirements. And those would be deployability, modifiability, testability, and moderability. So does anyone have any questions about what DevOps engineers are or what you might need to become one? Any questions? Okay. So DevOps engineers typically go through the following process for every new product that they work on with their teams. First, they'll automate development through creating a deployment pipeline. And they'll also introduce continuous integration, which is just the practice of having developers integrate their code into a repository multiple times per day. And the integrated code would be checked by automated tests, if that makes sense. But that might not be applicable with every DevOps pipeline. And they might also introduce automation tools like Ansible or Saltstack. Next, they'll, as I mentioned previously, automate testing through creating staging environments for testing and adding various types of automated tests like unit tests or system tests. And if you don't know, unit tests are just test on the individual components of whatever system they're working on. And after that, they will probably go for introducing metrics like product deployment frequency, how much time it takes for a product to deploy from start to finish, and the mean time to recovery after production failure. So for example, they might experience a bunch of merge conflicts, and this would measure how much time the team would take after that before getting ready for deployment. And they might also add monitoring systems to check for potential problems. But this process will vary from person to person, so you could add more steps before and or after step 3 to help ensure that your whatever software you're working on can be delivered efficiently and effectively. Any questions on DevOps engineers? Okay, it doesn't seem like anyone has any questions. So I guess we'll move on to database administrators. Next slide, please. Thanks. So database administrators are responsible for maintaining databases and ensuring that their databases run efficiently. Like they could optimize queries and rework their data storage architecture with their knowledge of database theory, and ensuring that they should also ensure that data can be accessed efficiently by their clients and managers. And although database administrators are often looked down upon because their work is usually more simple compared to other jobs like software engineering, their work is essential to many people on their teams, including data analysts. And in some companies, they're like the backbone of the entire company. Oh yeah, and the national average salary is $73,000 per year. Prospective database administrators usually opt for one or more of the following: a bachelor's degree in computer science or information technology, or a master's degree in computer science or database administration. But it's possible to become a database admin with only an associate's degree in CS or IT. Any questions on database admins? Okay. So since this job is not an entry-level job, successful database admins will usually have 1 to 3 experiences in a lesser role, like as a junior database administrator or in a generic IT role like software development intern or IT help desk intern. And database admin should have the following skills. They should know how to write code with SQL, which is a language for querying from databases. And they should also, in some cases, know how to develop dashboards or APIs to retrieve data, or just generally make it more accessible to their managers and clients. And they should also have knowledge of database architecture, theory, and design. Forgot the Oxford comment. But anyways, they should also have knowledge of database queries and general knowledge of storage technologies and networking, because they might need to they'll probably need to carry data in and out of the database or like migrate it entirely. And database admins usually take on a subset of development tasks. So like they won't do all of the, they probably, a typical database admin won't be doing all of these. So a database admin could be developing databases using their knowledge of database theory and design to construct application-specific databases optimized for their use cases. And for example, if you were, never mind. So they might also maintain databases by managing their installations, um, keeping things nicely configured, and handling and maintaining their data backups. And the database admin might also be translating or moving data by creating pipelines to and from databases for data warehousing, which is basically adding to a huge collection of business relevant data in larger database. And they might do this with complex SQL scripts. And that's where, and well, SQL is important for all of these, but this is where it's most important. So any questions on database admins or their workflow or any other information? Okay, cool.
Okay, so now we're gonna talk about mobile developers. So mobile developers, they specialize in mobile technology and they basically help code and create apps. And they create apps for like the Google's Android platform, Apple's iOS platform, and Microsoft's Windows phone platforms and others too. And they usually work in Android or iOS companies or the Microsoft Windows companies or software companies, retailers, travel and tourism agencies, entertainment companies, and also other private companies and more. And they usually work in groups and they need to work individually too. And the average salary for mobile developers is about $117,485. And now we're going to talk about the education for mobile developers. So they mobile developer jobs are usually like open to graduates who have the bachelor's in computer science or any other software related fields. There are also something called apprenticeships, which are available in mobile app development, where you receive like job training from mobile development while taking other classes. And people usually do this as an alternate to getting your bachelor's or master's. And a master's degree is in computer science or any other related software field is recommended if you want to be a mobile developer who wants to move into some of a top position. And this includes like specialists who have years of experience. And for mobile developers, recommended that you take classes in system design, data structuring, and obviously programming. And does anyone have any questions so far about mobile developers and their education? Okay, I think no questions. So basically, they need an. Now we're gonna go over this. Or does it include learning to code on different types of coding softwares like Java? Oh yeah, so I'll be talking about that right now. Skills in it. So basically, they need to know how to program using a variety of different programming languages, and the most important ones they use include Java, C Sharp, Swift, Objective C, and other ones. And the question was, does it include learning to code? Yes. So usually mobile developers do know more than one programming language, and Java is one of the most important ones they use. I hope that answered your question, Harry. And then they also need to have, okay, nice. Okay, they also need to have strong organizational skills and math skills, and problem solving and communication skills too, because they use these skills in their daily activity, I mean their daily like workload and everything. And they also need to learn how to keep up to date with new developments and trends in the tech and media world, and they need to adapt to these new changes and all. And they also need to be able to work on different mobile platforms like iOS or Windows phone platform or Android. And it's recommended that if you're interested in mobile development, that you gain experience by trying to code and create your own apps, mobile apps. Okay, now we're going to talk about the typical workflow and tasks for mobile developers. So they usually work on many different projects and tasks, and their workflow includes that they first come up with strategies and plans for the app based on client feedback or trends or anything. And then they start designing the app using UI or UX design or any related frameworks used for designing. And then they develop the app and using programming and other features. And then after the app is done, they need to test the functionality, the security, and the performance of the app. Then after the app passes all those tests, then they need to go to deployment, and they need to fill out forms and stuff for releasing the app. Um, and so that's usually a process too in releasing the app. And then some other common tasks include discussing the client's needs and requirements for the app with colleagues, creating APIs to help mobile functionality. Again, APIs mean application programming interface. And they also need, some other tasks include using and adapting web applications for apps. And another task is that they work with colleagues to innovate the app functionality and design. So they work with their colleagues a lot, and there's a lot of group work too. So are there any questions about mobile developers? Okay, no questions, then we can move on to computer hardware engineers. So, computer hardware engineers basically use computer science and other engineering principles to research, design, and develop computer systems and computer components. So, these components may include circuit boards like the PCB, which is basically printed circuit board, and they also develop routers, processors, memory devices, and other components. So they also need to supervise the development and manufacturing and the installation of these computer systems and components. And they design devices. They also design devices which are used in manufactured products, which use processors or other components and are connected to the internet. So they need to work with software developers with their tasks. And the median salary for entry level hardware engineer is about $71,007 per year, and the median salary for professionals with about like 7 to 10 years of experience is about $133,337 per year. And now we're going to talk about the education requirements for computer hardware engineers. So majority of them have a bachelor's degree in either computer hardware engineer, computer engineering, electrical engineering, computer science, or any related field. And some decide to get their master's degree in computer engineering, and then they can get specialized positions. Um, and then some employers do prefer candidates who have graduated from accredited programs. So those are a plus. And also IBM and Microsoft and Cisco certifications are also helpful for professional computer hardware engineers who want to pursue specific certifications for a specific type of hardware that they develop. And they usually have to like take some classes for these certifications, and go through a process with those, and basically taking classes in circuits and computer systems and other computer components is very helpful. And you basically are recommended to take classes in like how the computer works and everything. So now we're going to talk about skills and experience for computer hardware engineers. So they basically need to use engineering skills. They need to be able to develop new things and use the engineering design process and all. And they also need to have a full knowledge of all computer systems, circuits, and other computer components. And a solid background in math and science is needed. And they also need to use some programming languages to design and create some specific hardwares. And some languages they use include C, C++, Verilog, and HDL, which stands for Hardware Development Language. And they also need analytical skills and communication skills, as they need to use these in their everyday uh, um, tasks and all. And internships are highly recommended for people who want to become computer hardware engineers, and also participating in competitions like robotics or like any other experience with computers and computer components are very helpful, and these are things which employers do look for. And also participating in mentorship opportunities, I think there are some, and getting help from a mentor in the hardware engineering fields is also very helpful and looks good for employers when they review your application. So now the typical workflow and tasks for hardware engineers. So as described earlier, they do work in groups, and they also need to work individually to complete their tasks given in designing and developing their hardware. So their workflow includes first designing new computer hardware and creating schematics and blueprints of computer equipment. So basically, designing new computer hardware and components. And then the second step is they need to supervise the manufacturing process for their computer hardware. And then after it's developed, they need to test it and then analyze the results from the test and modifying the design of the hardware, like changing it again as needed for it to perform the best performance. And then they also need to update the computer equipment every few, like, they also need to keep in mind that they need to update it so that it works with the most updated software. And some other just some other tasks may include that they need to test and retest parts of their components to basically make sure that they work properly. And they also need to identify and isolate defects in their components and systems. And they also need to some other task includes designing and testing circuits and other electronic components. um, and yeah, are there any questions about computer hardware engineers? So I think there are no more questions.
So our fifth career is the quantitative analysts. So quantitative analysts, oh,
So the question was, do they deal with issues like low materials availability to make these hardwares? So yeah, that's definitely an issue they may experience if there's not much materials needed to make these hardware. So that's some stuff they need to decide on when they're designing it. And if it runs out, then they need to find an alternative too. I hope that answers your question, Harry. Okay, nice.
okay, well, back to quantitative analysts. They basically their job is to try to predict the stock market using mathematical models. And these analysts are usually very well paid. In entry level, they get paid 125K per year. But it's not uncommon for an experienced analyst to be paid 250 to even 500K. And they're usually employed by investment banks or hedge funds. Generally, they have poor work-life balance because of their job. They have long working hours, and so they get paid that much. But it's perfect for people who are interested in like the intersection of finance, mathematics, and computer science. Yeah, like Mihir said, quantitative analysts have very high growth rate. So in entry level, you make 125K, but with 2 years of experience, it would increase drastically to around 175. And within 6 years, it can go to 250K. And after that, it would start to slow down, but you'd still grow. So they make a lot, and because of that, it's pretty hard to get into, since employers in this field are looking for at least a master's, but it's recommended to get a PhD. And your degree should be in fields like computer science, mathematics, economics, statistics, or financial engineering. The skills and experience needed to be a quant is calculus. You need to know how to use differential equations, how to integral, and the stochastic. You need linear algebra and differential equations, like mentioning calculus. Probability and statistics are also needed because you have to analyze how the stock market works. And portfolio theory, which is basically how to maximize your profits based on like the average of what is affecting the risks in the stock market. Then there are also equity and interest rate derivatives, which include exotics, and credit risk products, which are essentially how much you might lose if a borrower fails to return or meet their loan to pay back. Usually C++ is used in Java, and MATLAB are also very common. MATLAB from back in the AI field, AI topic, and you're teaching, it helps you plot. It's like a language that helps you plot. What is it? Implement algorithms and plot a bunch of statistics and data to visualize. And the typical workflow and tasks for a quant is developing hypothesis of how a specific data set might affect some stocks. And they evaluate how your models for a certain company are performing by figuring out if they'll continue to perform or if they will have to change what they're doing because of a change in the stock market, which is based on that hypothesis they developed earlier.
An example for this might be like if like during the COVID thing, no one could have predicted, or the stock market, that quants couldn't have predicted the COVID pandemic, and so that's they have to kind of take that data and then develop a hypothesis, which is basically a model or an algorithm, a new algorithm that takes into account the COVID data. So that's how what they do. They take new data and kind of implement that and develop their algorithms.
That's a good analogy or anecdote. So does anyone have any questions for the quant career? No questions? Okay, I guess there are no questions then. So that's basically the last of our CS careers that we're talking about. Next week, we'll be having a guest speaker. His name is Philip Risa, a current software engineer at Polko, which is a company that helps city leaders and local governments online engage in how to promote engagement in their community. And he is a former software engineer at Google. So he'll be really helpful in discussing careers in computer science, and he'll have a lot of useful information in regards to that industry and the fields. So if you want to know anything, you should come prepared with a few questions, because yeah, this will be the best time to ask someone who's already working. Well, that's it for this meeting. Thank you all for coming. And make sure this is our Facebook and Instagram. If you want any questions, you can email us at that email. And yeah, that's it for our meeting. Thank you guys for coming.
Bye.
Have a nice day, Harry. Bye, Ethan. I guess I'll stop.